Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game 4 edition of the Kenny and Renny Show, breaking down Game 4 between the Vegas Golden Knights and Montreal Canadiens, a thrilling affair. Sean Reynolds, Mr. Renny, will be joining us shortly. He's still inside the Bell Center. For those of you joining us, thank you. Joined by special guest Mitch Peacock. Mitch, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
First time, long time. There we go. Happy to have you with us. Usually we just start out with a quick thought on the game itself. What stood out to you about Game 4 and what is now a tied series?
Well, I think one of the things that jumped out at me is how well Montreal was able to play from beginning to end. I thought that, at the end of the night, when you look at the result, the Canadiens will feel that there's a lot of positives to take with them into the next game. But at the same time, they'll also feel like they're not sure how much better they can do than that and not come away with something. And to have a 3-1 lead going to Vegas after playing a complete game or something close to it would have been, I think, really emboldening for Montreal. And instead, they've got to do something a little bit challenging mentally, which is try and fight off the result of the game and just trust that they played the right way and see if they can get themselves in the frame of mind to do that again in a couple of nights. So, that's the thing that jumps out at me from the game tonight is just a really good game from Montreal doesn't produce a win. Can they get themselves right for Tuesday and see if they can replicate that? And for the Vegas Golden Knights, going to that third period, they knew that despite not playing their best game and getting a great game from the goalie, who was really the story going into the night, that if they found a way in that third period, they could get the split in Montreal. They could take the thing home. They could be feeling good about themselves and in a position to get the upper hand in this series, and they were able to do it. So I think the Knights will feel like, things worked out pretty good for them, and the Canadiens will have to focus on the process.
So interesting, Mitch. I mean, obviously, the way this thing rolled out, I think probably both teams would say that it's a split is a fair result based on how games 3 and 4 were played. Probably the team that felt they deserved to win didn't win either of those games, which is a little bit of classic playoff hockey, but is the way that it goes. I mean, a great test for both teams. If you're Montreal, how are you feeling? I mean, Luke Richardson definitely talked about it. Josh Anderson said there were a lot of positives, but can you spin positives in a results-oriented business when you know that it's down to basically a best of 3 here between two very good teams?
Well, so interesting because as you rightly point out, look at that game a couple of nights ago, and Montreal had no business. What was it, 30-8 after 2 periods? The shots on goal for Vegas, 45-27 in the end, and Montreal gets a terrific game from Carey Price. They find a way to win, and Vegas is wondering what they did wrong. And you wonder about how much the way the game played out on Friday played into Montreal being so much better tonight, right? The Canadiens probably thought, well, we're not going to get away with that 2 times in a row. We got to come up with a better performance. They came up with a better performance and didn't get the result. So, as you said, very interesting that a split from the 2 games probably seems right for the 2 teams, but that the team that played better on the Knights didn't come away, and I don't mean Knights, on the Knights didn't come away with the win. So that's hockey, and that's why you got to keep playing and win 4 out of the 7, and here we go. And I don't know, are you one of those guys that thinks there's momentum in series, or do you kind of start fresh every night?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was even going to say, even if Vegas loses the game, I would have cautioned some folks to saying that the series was over. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Vegas was down 2-0 to Colorado and had played 2 good periods out of 6, and people were thinking it was going to be a series sweep, let alone win the series and win the next 4. So I think that there's a battle-tested element to both of these teams that really stand out to me. We know we've talked about it a ton. Vegas, having been to the conference final 3 times in the last 4 years, I think that really counts for a lot. And you have a lot of players in that Montreal team that have sort of been driving the bus that have a ton of experience. Yes, their young players are coming through. Suzuki with another great assist in the game tonight, but they're really leaning on their veterans in this game. And you touched on it in your first answer. I guess we probably let's dig right into the goalie scenario. What was your reaction to the news this afternoon that Robin Lehner would be getting the start? And maybe secondly, what did you think of Peter DeBoer's explanation post-game, saying it was partially related to rest and had nothing to do with the blunder that what led to the tying goal in Game 3?
I guess when I learned this afternoon that Leonard was going to play, I probably had a reaction similar to Ben Sherratt. I think
the eye raise.
Really? But, very quickly you say, well, they've invested in two outstanding goaltenders, and they did that for a reason. And it's not just if one happens to get hurt. There are situations where you want to make this move and have this up your sleeve to be able to do. So I think if Kelly McCrimmon is going to build the kind of a team that gives you those assets, you employ those assets in a way that you think helps the team the most. I think it was courageous on Peter DeBoer's part because it's against maybe some conventional thinking. But at the same time, I think Vegas has its own thinking because of the way they built their team and the attitude that they have and the expectations that they have internally. So the decision makes sense to me. And in terms of Peter DeBoer saying, well, it wasn't because of performance, without a doubt, I mean, look at the season that Marc-Andre Fleury has had. And he made one puck handling mistake late in the game. That's not reason to banish a guy to the bench for the rest of the playoffs as if he's let you down and doesn't have it anymore. That's no way that's the case, right? So it's just, I think you've got an asset there that can do a job, and you're giving them an opportunity to do it. And you really have to tip your cap to Robin Lehner for coming up with that performance tonight. Not because he was especially poor in the loss in the 7-1 game to start the last series. I'd say that's unfair. He was put in a very difficult spot, and really his job was to give Marc-Andre Fleury a night off then, which he hung in there and was able to do. But just to play, twice in 40 some odd days,
40,
and to come in those conditions when your team had to have something, that takes a lot. And that's skill, and that's also, just guts. And you saw the way he played the game. He was going to battle for everything. There were some rebounds, there was some sloppy stuff. You could tell maybe he was a little bit rusty, but he was going to fight for everything. And so I really felt like it was a gutsy call by DeBoer, but a good use of resources. I don't think it says anything necessarily about Marc-Andre Fleury. And I thought Robin Lehner rose to the occasion in fantastic style. And his comments about showing up early to read social media so he could see everybody talking shit about him and get fired up for the game. Boy, I had Last Dance flash into my mind as soon as I read that. I just thought, really, you needed that to get ready for the game tonight, given all of the other things going on surrounding this game. And I don't believe that, the vast majority of feedback from the 7-1 loss was how terrible Robin Lehner was. In fact, I think most people watching it were sympathetic in saying, what a difficult spot to be put into, and way to hang in there on a night where your partner just needed a night off. So whatever works, whatever gets him going, that's his choice. Not sure I buy it, but boy, did it pay off. And now we're a best of three. So
yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I'm going to read this quote. Organizational depth is our greatest strength. Not afraid to use it. I love that part of the answer. DeBoer reinforcing that they've used that depth up front. They've used it on the back end with Nicholas Hague coming in. He had to come in basically when McNabb was on the COVID list. And I loved what you said. And I mean, Sean and I had this debate on the pregame for our Sound On segment with Sportsnet.ca today. He was a little bit up in arms. I don't want to speak out of turn for him, and he'll have a chance to defend himself beforehand. And again, I certainly knew where he was coming from, but I'm with you. I mean, you have Marc-Andre Fleury is the reliable vehicle. He's kept you on the road all year long, but you don't go out and buy a Corvette for the summer months. You can park the Corvette in the winter, but when you have the Corvette in the garage in the summertime, if you're not going to take the cover off of it, why'd you buy it? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that if you weren't confident enough to put Robin Lehner in, then you shouldn't have given him the 5-year deal at $5 million. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I love the other part of Lehner's answer. I loved his honesty too, but I'm with you. I mean, I think that Robin Lehner has plenty of motivation, that he doesn't need the media tweets to get him fired up for the game.
And we all loved it. All of us on this side of the equation loved it. You guys,
for sure,
right? Because we're all one.
Yeah. All the people saying this was a great call by DeBoer, he completely ignored all of those people for motivation, but only used the negative criticism. But I love the fact that he's talked openly about blocking out the noise. It doesn't matter to them. And I do appreciate the reinforcement of, him saying that people think that I stink all of a sudden. It's like, well, these guys basically had a goalie share situation in the last, I think, quarter of the year plus. Last 24 games, I think they went for flat out rotation for the majority of that time. Yeah. And that's to take nothing away from what Fleury's done in the season. He's a legit Vezina candidate. I think he can win it. And he's played great in the playoffs. And everyone who's talked at a microphone has said the Vegas Golden Knights would not be there without Marc-Andre Fleury's play. And that is a cold, hard fact. That's a fact. No one's disputing that fact. But I love the way that Leonard has handled himself. He gave the same kind of answers last year in the bubble when he took over and stole the job from Marc-Andre Fleury. This is a legitimate partnership. These two coexist together. And Mitch, you have experience at the goalie position. What does it mean when you have the support of your partner, even when it doesn't go well for you, and you're the one having to take a back seat and watching the other guy?
Well, I did a lot of watching, so I can speak to it from that vantage point. Everybody's different. Some guys kind of like to do their own thing, and they don't, there's not a huge connection to the other guy, or they might even use the other guy as a motivator to stay sharp, and that usually kind of wears on people after a while and doesn't always work long term. But you can see, obviously, between these two guys, they've got a great rapport. I mean, look at Fleury tapping Leonard on the pads in the pregame warm-up, and Leonard banging on the glass during the game, acknowledging Fleury. These are mature professionals who are secure in their ability, confident in what they can do. I think that, that's an ideal situation. When you've got two guys like that, you've got two quality, experienced guys who are mature and support one another. You got the best chance of getting the best out of them. And that's all you can look for. You get to a point, as guys get to a point in their career, Ken, where there's enough money in the bank and there's enough of those cars in the garage you were talking about that, all they want to do is win. And if it means being nice to the other guy until you get a chance to play, you be nice to the other guy until you get a chance to play, and make sure you're ready when it's your turn. And, there's not a lot more than that. Just let's get our name on that cup.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, I love the courageous decision. I mean, I loved that DeBoer said he felt it was no bigger gamble than if he was playing a guy who had played 17 and 33 or whatever the numbers ended up being. I love the conviction that he showed. It said, my only responsibility is to give the players in that room their best chance to win. That means his decisions that he makes up front. That means his decisions that he makes on the back end. That means when he chooses to put Pietrangelo and Theodore on the ice at the same time. That also means who he starts in net. And one thing you have to say about Pete DeBoer, he's not afraid to make hard decisions. I know that, and the other thing about Vegas, and that's the other part Sean and I talked about before the game, they have not been afraid to move out popular players. So to me, some people, that rubs people the wrong way, and you understand that, but sometimes you got to make the hard decisions. You have to detach emotionally at times. And the fact that DeBoer pointed out that he feels that Leonard has one of the toughest jobs in hockey. You are basically playing behind a legend and the face of the franchise. So it has not been an easy road for Robin Leonard. Never mind what he's gone through personally. I love the way that he's handled himself, and he played great. If Leonard's not great early, Vegas does not win this hockey game, and that is a flat out fact as well.
Yeah, never mind the save off of Caufield in the third period when it still 1-0. He had a phenomenal game and was critical to their success tonight. And I echo what you're saying in terms of what he's handled personally. For him to come back from the things that he's dealt with and find a way to be still a key part of his family and in support for his children, and to find a game that works at such a high level is really laudable and very impressive. And whatever makes him tick as far as being able to be motivated for games, that's his choice too. That's a good comment, by the way. Reverse of game 3. We were thinking about that a few minutes ago. I think there's a culture in a very short time that's been established with Vegas. I think it's top down, and the mindset is, and I mean ownership down. The mindset is we're going to invest in this thing to the maximum capacity, and we're going to try and win. And, we're going to ruffle some feathers maybe along the way. And some fans aren't going to like some of the choices. Maybe the guys in the room won't even like some of the choices. But I think that what they're banking on is that bottom line is all guys who show up there want to win. So, that's what it comes down to there. Now, does that maybe wear on people after a while? Maybe, that, I don't know, year after year after year, if people feel like they're just treated like a commodity or a piece of a puzzle, maybe that you run into issues culture-wise occasionally. But boy, really, when it comes down to it, the job is to win. The responsibility to the organization, to the fans, is to win. So those are the decisions that are made. And I think Peter DeBoer understands what the mandate is and what's at his disposal to go after it.
Love it. Let's shift gears to the Montreal Canadiens. We touched on it early, in terms of how they played. What stood out for you? I mean, Josh Anderson, for me, great confidence boost after scoring the 2 goals, including the game winner. 10 hits tonight. I thought that line was really buzzing again today. Obviously, they get the big goal. It was a blended shift, but Paul Byron delivering another great goal. And this is another one of these great stories. I mean, yes, Leonard's dealt with some amazing things too, but Paul Byron was on waivers 3 times this year.
I love that stuff.
If you needed a player that is incredible shorthanded and is one of the fastest skaters in the NHL, you could have had Paul Byron for free.
Yeah.
You didn't have to trade an asset. All you had to do was make a claim. So, sometimes there's a little bit of overthinking that happens, and, you understand, yes, there's other factors that go into it. But, man, Paul Byron has scored 3 of the most important goals for the Montreal Canadiens in these playoffs. One's a shorthanded game winner against Toronto. He scored a big goal the other night, and he scored another one today. I mean, he scored the game winner. Man, I've loved the way that he's played. What have you seen from that line? Because they got this really interesting blend. You've got a power forward coming into his own. You have a young centerman who's played a really physical game, and then you got one of those cagey veterans like Paul Byron, who came out like a house on fire a couple of years ago, had a bit of a flat year, was on waivers, and really has elevated the game, his game in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just part of that formula that Montreal has used to get this far, right? Which is to have depth throughout their forward group and to be able to play anybody up and down the lineup. And we talked, or it's been talked about at great length, what the Stahl line has been able to do, and in contributing. That line is very interesting to me, and I'm making faces while you're asking me the question because I want Jesperi Kotkaniemi to reach his potential. I like the idea of what people think that he can be, with his height and his length and his skating and some of the tools that are there, but he makes me nervous right now. I'm not a scout for a reason. I see finished products and appreciate finished products. I struggle sometimes to see unfinished products to what they can be down the road and what they can give you right now. And so I'm having a little bit of a hard time with Kotkaniemi out there. I thought on the winning goal tonight that he misread the play defensively. I thought he followed the player into Sherratt's area and turned his back on the goal scorer and ended up diving in behind the goalie instead of taking Waugh, which is probably harsh. But I admitted my bias before I said that. So that's my alibi. Josh Anderson, we hadn't scored in 12 games before getting the 2 on Friday. So when he's banging and crashing and skating and getting in and around the net, he takes that line to a different level, I think. And Byron does what he does. I think that when those 2 older guys on the wings are able to feel good about their games, they can help lift Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi is not poor by any means, but I think he's a little bit unpredictable. Maybe that's the best way to say it. You're not sure if he's going to make the right read defensively. You're not sure if he's going to take the extra gamble in the offensive end and get caught out of position just because he's learning on the job in such high stakes environment. But Montreal played a fantastic game tonight. I mean, I looked at natural stat trick after the third period, and the high danger chances were listed as 18-0.
Right. In all situations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even manage one high danger chance with power play.
There
was only one power play.
So, that line, you talk about Kotkaniemi's line, I think all the lines and the way they're managing the D with, the rotation that they're using, with Gustafsson and, Merrill. Yeah. With the way they're managing those guys, I think is wise. Obviously, they're not a great trust in having them out there together, but to rotate them with the top 4 guys, I think they're getting the most out of it. I said it earlier. I don't know Montreal can play a whole bunch better than they did. If they play 3 more games like that, right, they've got a chance to win the series. To me, that's the challenge for Montreal right now, is replicating that or something close to it.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. I mean, Pete DeBoer after the last game saying that if his team played that same way, they weren't going to get beat 2 more times in the
That's true.
series, right? And now
Yeah.
Montreal is thinking the exact same thing. They
Yeah.
think if they can replicate that effort, if it goes 3 more games,
Can
they
you
should
imagine?
win.
Well, can you imagine if they do, both teams replicate those,
Right.
what we're in for? Like what kind of hockey we're going to get in the next 3 games? You know?
Exactly. Yeah, I want to stay in Montreal. I mean, you
Yeah.
touched on the other lines. Fourth line, we've talked about a ton. I loved what they're doing. I thought again they were really drivers in that first period, especially. Let's dig in on Brendan Gallagher and Philippe Deneau. I thought that both of them played well again tonight. Obviously, Gallagher 5 shots on goal. Deneau had 4. What's it going to take for them to break through? We know they are handling the toughest. I mean, I mentioned DeBoer feeling that Leonard had the toughest job. I feel like Philippe Deneau and Brendan Gallagher have the toughest
Yeah.
job because they have basically blanketed Stone and Pacioretty. Yes, Pacioretty makes a great play on the winner. Really good. I love the power move down low, the net drive behind the net, shielding it, spinning, getting the shot to the net. But that line itself has not been rolling. I mean, Mark Stone is one of the best players in the NHL. He has no points in this series and is visibly frustrated, but he's also doing an important defensive job, which he does every night. But for Deneau, I said this to Sean earlier, I don't think Montreal can win this series without getting an offensive contribution from Deneau and Gallagher, and that's not to diminish what they are doing without the puck, because that has been exceptional.
Yeah.
But because of their makeup of their team, I just think they have to come up with a big goal on one of these nights in order to beat a team that is as good and as deep as Vegas. What have you seen from them?
I thought, you know what, I've been watching Gallagher because I'm not sure that he's healthy. He doesn't seem to be as quick and in on everything the way that he usually is. But tonight I thought he was excellent. Tonight I don't know what changed from Friday to today, but his energy seemed different to me. I thought his skating was a little quicker. I thought he was a little feistier. I thought he was doing more of the things that make him the effective player that he is. He's such a terrific player and such an important part of that team in what he brings. But if he's not healthy, just like Weber, as Kevin Bieksa says, playing with no thumbs, it's hard at this time of year when you're banged up, especially if you play the way that somebody like Gallagher does or Weber does. So I love the way that he played tonight. I think that if he keeps playing like that, he is going to chip in with something. Danault, I don't know. I mean, Danault, why would he produce offense now? He never does. As long as he does the job that he does, I'm okay with that. I think Lekkonen's done a nice job filling in on that line. On the other side of the equation is, you talk about the limits in production or the non-production from Stone and from Pacioretty. I mean, in fairness to those guys, and I don't mean this is, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but I'm thinking it's a bit of a donut line right now, right? Because they're trying to figure out who's in the middle there. And that's tough for those guys, right? Because there's no consistent center for that line. That they're relying on, that they make plays predictable, make the game predictable for those high-end guys. So that might be making the job a little bit more manageable for that Deneau line and a little bit harder for Stone and Pacioretty to kick something in. But to your question about Gallagher, I thought he was better tonight. I think he always brings something, but I thought he was closer to his good stuff tonight. And I'm not too concerned about Deneau chipping in anything. As long as he doesn't give up on the idea of chipping in something. I liked tonight when he, picked up that one, went down the left side, and although he was at a wide angle, he made sure he got a puck to the net. Like, as long as he's not just chipping everything deep and giving up, as long as the other team has to honor him somehow, I think there's a value in that. That's fair, I think.
For sure. We talked about Robin Leonard. Let's talk about the other netminder. Obviously, you've been watching him closely. I know a lot of folks won't like the McNabb goal, but
yeah.
It's also... People won't agree that it's a perfect shot because it's a defensive defenseman that finishes the shot. But if you look at the slow motion replay, there's not a lot of room to be had. First, to get it past Edmondson, and then to find the piece of equipment that it goes in off of. So it's not like Price played it poorly. I don't think he got a really good view of it when it came off the stick. And that whole play was made by William Karlsson. I mean,
that's what I was just going to say.
Speaking of guys who needed to elevate their games, William Karlsson, that line was excellent for Vegas.
Yes.
As the game went on, I love the, speaking of Peter DeBoer Appreciation Society here, putting Alex Tuck back on that line with Nicholas Waugh on that third
halfway
line
through the second
was so smart.
Yeah.
That line was really buzzing, but to me, it was the misfits line that was driving the offensive bus. And even though they didn't have a lot of shots on goal early on in the game, that line, Riley Smith was skating much better. Marchessault way more involved. Yes, he has to hit the net on those chances, but that line was great. And Karlsson was flying all night long. He gets loose behind the net and great vision. He picks up McNabb before he gets to the post. This isn't something where he looked up last second and thought, oh, wait, there's Braden McNabb. He already picked him up at the first side of the post.
At the first post. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that play. Sorry, let's go back to Price there.
Yeah, no, well, firstly, I think that's a really important element of the game tonight is if you're Vegas and you're saying, geez, the Karlsson line is back, they're playing the right way, they're feeling good. That's a group that's going to create chances. And when they do, that's usually bad news for the other team. So, I think that's a huge thing for Vegas. I also think the narrative that the Vegas defense is scoring, but the forwards aren't, and pointing to the McNabb goal as more evidence of that is a bit miscast because of the phenomenal play by Karlsson. So there's that. But as far as Price goes, he's been sensational in these playoffs. He stole the game on Friday. Here's the thing. Modern goaltending is a really sophisticated form of playing the odds. All of those techniques are designed for percentages. And so every once in a while, when the goalie goes down against the near post and somebody puts one past his ear and it goes in and everybody goes, that's a crap goal, it should never go in. Well, the 2,000 other times that he stopped it and didn't give up a rebound and managed to play from there, you never said anything. And same with this one tonight. He makes that. He does the right technique. He does everything that he's supposed to do. The puck goes kind of on its edge and slips between his arm and his hip and goes in. 2,000 other times it hit him in the logo or the pants or the pads and it died right in front of him and nobody said anything. So, I understand that the goal appears to be a squeaker. I understand that people think, well, geez, the puck hit him, it shouldn't go in. I guess all I'm saying is that this is a percentage play, and this is one of the rare occasions where the percentage didn't work in favor of the goalie, who was, .930 in the playoffs or 920
over 950
plus
in the series up until the goals, right? So, an excellent...
I get it, but that's not really how it works. Play the play, play that play 100 times, and I think you'll like the number of them that he stops. So
yeah, no doubt about that. We have some great hustle shown once again by Sean Reynolds, and he will hop in with us here.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
I was in, and you took me out.
We're going to argue about who's going to bring who in.
Holy smokes.
I wanted to tee up the music for Sean, but he doesn't want to have any diva mentality here. He wants to jump in on the analysis here. Welcome,
Not all
Sean.
of us have entry music, Ken, okay? So
you don't have a walk-up song?
I don't have an entrance song. I've got
right.
the headband. Right. An article of my clothing has its own entry music, but I personally don't have my
article
song.
of my clothing.
Ken, I tuned in, so we were having a little bit of technical issues, which is why I'm late. Couldn't get to it. So I thought, hey, I'll check in on my good buddies, Ken Weeb and Mitch Peacock.
Yeah,
see
you
what
only
they're
got a
talking
snippet,
about.
buddy. You got a snippet only.
And I tune in and I hear you trashing my analysis.
Not knocking it at all.
Trashing my analysis.
Not true.
I would say it was
No,
more
it's
of a
funny.
burial than a trashing.
Yes, exactly. It was
Burial prior to the service. That's right. That's right.
I'll say this: like Ken said, we were working on the Sound On app, which is a Sportsnet initiative, and really it's kind of like we're beta testing it. We're just doing, we're having these conversations. This is what they'd look like. There was no one else in on the chat. No one needed to know that, Ken. You brought it out.
How effective is the vaccine against this beta?
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
Sean, I was not even ripping you. I was saying it was debate. No, I said we were just discussing this. I had no problem. What I was telling you.
In fairness to the happy couple, I was actually in on the conversation with Ken, and it was very, very mild.
No, I know.
If you're taking offense to that, you're Robin Leonard.
No, I'm trying to create controversy here. You know
Just
what?
trying to create the
I'll
noise.
say this, Ken. It's interesting because in the end, it was I went on Sportsnet afterwards, and the line that I used was essentially in a game where you're thinking coaching is going to be such a big deal in this series with Dominic Ducharme being out. I thought that the coaching battle was won by the Montreal Canadiens throughout that game. They were the better team. They created the better opportunities. They seemed to figure out, Vegas's systems better than Vegas figured out Montreal's. But Pete DeBoer's best coaching decision was made before the game started. I mean, Robin Lehner comes in and absolutely puts up a brick wall. I loved his battle. I loved his compete that entire game. There's a subtle play that he does when the Canadiens are in the zone and Joel Armia is alone in front of the net and the Canadiens can't get it to him, but they ring it around the boards. And it's one of these plays where that fourth line is out there. Joel Armia is going to go get the puck and he's going to grab it and they're going to set up and it's going to be another one of these grinding shifts that they have. And Joel Armia goes to get there and Robin Lehner steps out of his net and steps in front of him and doesn't let him get to the puck. And to me, it was just one of those moves where he was going to affect that game one way or another. He went in with that mentality that he was going to put his thumbprints all over that game. And I look at that save on Cole Caufield as being, to me, that was the turning point of the game. He makes that save, keeps that game a 1-goal game. And really just shuts the door from then on. But that was the coaching decision that won that game. I thought good on him. But I will say this, what we had talked about, the worry of it was how his team would react around him. I know you guys talked about that a little bit. I don't think that the response by the rest of his team is that good of a response. That's as flat as we've seen Vegas be in this entire series. I'm not going to say it's because Robin Lehner went in there and it had an effect. But if the desired effect was to get a pop from your goalie that spread to the rest of your team, it didn't spread to the rest of their team. Robin Lehner was just so good that he was able to win that game for them on his own.
Yeah, one quick one about the breakaway and just having listened in on the Zoom with Robin Lehner. You talk about the preparation side, Sean. I loved his answer. He said on the pre-scout, what Caufield does on a breakaway is try to go high like he did when he scored on Fleury or go 5-hole. So for everyone who's saying that, backup goalies, all they do is show up, put on a baseball cap, drink some water, and maybe occasionally open the door, except in the arenas where you're sitting at the other gate. This guy is prepared. He knows exactly what Cole Caufield is going to do when he gets a breakaway, so that if by chance he is in the game playing, he's ready to make the save, and he makes just an outstanding save. Love the game that Leonard had. Sean, I know what you're saying about the pop. They didn't have the great start. That's true. But to me, the only pop that matters is that they even the series 2-2, and I think they still will end up getting a boost from what happened. And I don't think that was the reason why they came out flat. But, I mean, there was a lot of things. I know you're not saying that.
The other thing, too, is, when you talk about, in the regular season, when you put your backup in, you're expecting the guys to come out and fight for the guy because he doesn't get to play very much, and you don't want him to get shelled, and you want to get night off for the other guy and whatever. But when you're putting Robin Lehner in, you're not putting in a backup that's a slug who's fighting to keep his head above water, right? So I don't know that it has the same potential to have that shot on the arm effect, because the guy's Robin Lehner is just as good as Marc-Andre Fleury. So it's not like that kind of a change is to get the guys to play better because they know the other guy doesn't have it. And the other thing too, and the other thing too, think about the game that, and because you were busy with your job or whatever you want to call it, you might not have heard, but Kenny and I were talking about the fact that Vegas was phenomenal on Friday. They had 45 shots, right? Montreal was the team that needed to be better tonight.
Right.
Montreal was the team that had to find its game, or might find themselves in real trouble in this one. And so, I think there was kind of a clash emotionally coming into that game too. Just because of the way the last game played out and the way this one set up.
Yeah.
Here, let's get into this here. This is a great question.
Hold on.
One other thing. I'm the guest, so I have some privileges here. You were talking about a guy named Joel Armia. I think you're confusing that with the guy who used to play for the Jets.
Oh, Yoel. Yeah,
yes, there's a guy that plays for Montreal now whose name is Joel Armia. And
Ken, Ken, I'm going to let you do the hosting here because you know where we've been, but I just wanted to bring this back up from Tristan Rivers. You haven't dropped the ball at all, Tristan.
Exactly, no chance.
Entirely, we are spoiled by you. It's awesome. I made the rule. People have to, or if people request the headband, they'll get the headband. But I just didn't want to. I thought it would look a little devious.
That was really subtle, Sean. That was really subtle.
If people were saying to request the headband,
that's not the purpose. I thought it would look weird for me to pop up with it. I like to present as a professional before I debase myself for the audience. Ken.
Right.
All right, you
well
go
done,
on.
Well done.
What I do think is interesting, Ken, if Sean, if you could plug your ears for a moment, I do think it is interesting that Sean decided to bring the headband to Montreal.
Yeah, exactly.
I have
There
to.
you go.
I have
Exactly.
to.
You got to be prepared.
They wrote a song about it. Has its own song.
You got to give the people what they want, Mitch. You got to give the people what they want.
The headband is more important to the show than I am at this stage, Mitch.
Actually, I've got sources in Montreal telling me that Sean puts the headband on to walk home from the rink so he doesn't get recognized as the guy from Sportsnet.
There you go. There you go. It's my Clark Kent costume.
Yeah.
There you go. Go, Kenny.
Okay, right on. Sean and I have already debated this question.
Wait, hold on. We got to do this.
Hey,
he bit. James bit. Here we go.
Very
Fantastic.
good. James, yep, like we say, got to give the people what they want.
Johnny's brother, by the way.
Yes,
That's
I know,
Johnny
yeah.
Anderson's brother.
Thanks
made
for
the
being
request.
with us as usual, James. Love to see it.
All right, let's get back to work, Ken. You're up.
Yeah, okay. Sean and I have already debated on this. We're going to have to give it a little bit of backup plan here. But Mitch, I want to give you the first crack at it before we dive into what we've already shared via text message. I say I don't know that it was a conclusive that it was over. I don't think for 1 second it would have counted because it's an obvious goalie interference.
Okay.
Even if the puck is over the line, what were your thoughts on the call itself?
I was fascinated because I thought as soon as they say that's a goal, there's going to be a challenge here for goaltender interference. I thought, wouldn't that be interesting to see it flip from that to that? Because, there's a guy standing in the crease. I just thought that I was sort of rooting for it to play out that way just so we could go through all of that. But in the end, I think they got the call right. So we didn't have to get into the what ifs and the potentials. But I definitely thought, Stahl standing right there, that's no goal anyway. What about you? How do you see that?
Sean, you dig in?
Well, I thought it was over the line, but I thought that I thought it was one of those things where it was going to be inconclusive regardless, because I guess there's, the puck could have been in the heel of his glove.
Could hit the cheater, right? It could have hit the cheater instead of being in the glove.
Right, exactly. But I thought to me, it looked like it was over, but I think maybe they thought, did they want to kind of create the possibility of it having that great swing like Mitch is talking about, or even the fact that maybe they do win it and then it's challenged again for goaltender interference and it doesn't happen. Just seemed like a swing they weren't willing to take, and that they were confident in how they were playing. They were getting to the front of the net. There was Arpon Basu had shared that at some point in that game, the high danger chances were 18-0.
At the end of the third period, they were 18-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Canadiens clearly liked what they were doing, felt confident in what, in their chances in that game. Regardless, I think, there's a video coach behind there saying, I think it's in, but I don't think we can prove that it's in. That's my take on it.
One other thing, when they put that addition onto the goalie's glove in the mid 80s, it was okay with me to call it a cheater because it was new. Why are we still calling it a cheater? I mean, Let's be honest. It's part of the equipment. It's been there, since I was playing, and that's a long time ago. So let's just call it the hit the part of the glove or something. You
Well,
know?
well,
Like,
do
I don't like
the
the idea. I just don't like the implication that there's cheating going on. But
okay, settle down, goaltender.
Yeah.
Look at
The
you,
goalies
just,
union,
defending the
goalies
Yeah.
union is well represented this evening. That's correct.
I'm suggesting that the kids probably don't call it a cheater, and we do because we're old and we remember a time before they had a cheater, and then someone put it on there, and we all said that's cheater.
cheating.
And we still
Guaranteed
call
goals.
it
Yeah,
that.
those used to be guaranteed goals.
Yeah.
I think you're advocating for that to be, stricken from the lexicon, but I
Yes.
think the lexicon has probably moved on. It's just that we haven't, Mitch. That's the problem.
You're right. Lexicon, is that thing that has the horn in its forehead?
They named a drink at
Goodness.
Starbucks after it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Here, I wanted to have we talked about the youth side of this?
The what?
Who?
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up and stop me, because if you guys have talked about this, I thought that. So to me, this game is one of the games where we've been talking throughout the playoffs about the Nick Suzuki's and the Cole Caufields and the Jesperi Kotkaniemis and the difference that those players have made, and they've made a huge difference. Being from Winnipeg, and I saw this the other day, if you take a look at Cole Caufield, I went and I looked at that draft class, and he's really, the one guy out of that who's really making an impact. The way he has, I know that Hughes at the top of that draft has been in for a while. He's got more points, but he hasn't had the impact that we're seeing from Cole Caufield in these playoffs. But you've got Jets fans who are seeing Cole Caufield and saying that's the reason Ville Heinola should have been in with the Winnipeg Jets, because the same thing could be happening. The one thing about it is I would argue what happened tonight is the kind of stuff that Paul Maurice was worried about. To me, the Canadiens lose this game tonight from rookie mistakes. So if you go back to the game tying goal, there's a point where the Vegas defender grabs the puck and just throws it back in an effort to keep it inside the zone. And Cole Caufield is skating into the puck on the boards, and the Canadiens turn and start. There's two players that turn to follow the puck and start moving towards Cole Caufield to give him support to get the puck out of the zone, to follow him out. And they're already transitioning and moving up ice. And Cole Caufield is thinking, I'm going to grab this puck and I'm going to race up the ice. He's not thinking, I better stop this puck from getting past me, because if it does, there's a problem. And the puck gets past him. So he's thinking offense. And at that point, it skips over his stick. The Canadiens, if you watch it, are suddenly caught with everyone down low. At one point, you could have thrown a tire on the ice and caught three Montreal Canadiens defenders, including Joel Edmondson, who needed to be out to seal off the far side of the post. And that happens because the Canadiens have the puck in a position to get it out. Cole Caufield has that, and he makes that mistake. Now, I don't mean to harp on a young man. The Montreal Canadiens would not be where they are right now without the contributions by Cole Caufield. But youth caught them in that position. You'll see at the end of the game, Ken, I'm sure you noticed this, right in the last minute, they put that lineup, but they put Yoel Armia out rather than Cole Caufield. That's a clear sign that they didn't want to risk it at that stage. I thought Cole Caufield for the rest of that game was taking long shots that ended up being just Vegas breakouts, because he was, what do you do when you're a young kid and you make a mistake? You try and go out and you try and make it right. That's your first instinct. Rather than getting back to playing right, you try and make it right. He got caught in that situation. And then on the final goal of the game-winning goal, Jesperi Kotkaniemi gets caught trying to block the puck rather than block his man out. He jumps in to try and cheat the route, stop the puck from getting there. He doesn't stop it. It gets behind him. And that's why in a game where Vegas had no space and no opportunities, Nicholas Waugh wins the game with all kinds of time and all kinds of space, because that's a mistake made by Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I take a look at that game and I think it's a perfect game plan by the Montreal Canadiens. And yet a perfect game plan does not get you by when tiny mistakes are made by rookies. And this is a night where, yes, the Montreal Canadiens have gone with youth and it's gotten them places in these playoffs. But this is the kind of stuff that I would argue Paul Maurice was worried about when dealing with players like Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley throughout the entire year, because you can have the perfect game plan and it can all be submarined by mistakes like those. And in my opinion, that's what happened to the Montreal Canadiens tonight.
Yeah, Mitch touched on Kotkaniemi earlier.
Yeah, I felt the
before you
same
got
way
here,
about
but,
the goal in overtime. I thought Kotkaniemi also. You talked the first part of the play, or the earlier part of the play. I talked about the part where the puck came towards the net, and he overreacted by covering a guy that was already going to Sherratt, and then had to react by jumping in and getting in behind. But you know what I would say, Sean, in response to your comment about young players. I would say young players, but all players have upsides and all players have downsides. There's a risk in every player. I think that Montreal is playing the best players it has available for them to have success. I think that more times than not, it's worked out. That's why they're here. And some nights like tonight, it'll bite you in the butt. But Montreal still feels those are the players that give them the best chance to win. And you can't assess a player on one game. You got to kind of take the playoffs as a whole. So I think it's fair to say the game plan was excellent, but I don't know if it's fair to go all the way to saying if it wasn't for two guys that are young and inexperienced making mistakes, they wouldn't have lost the game.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
would they
not have? It's clearly the difference in the game is those two plays.
Well, not necessarily, because if Leonard doesn't stop the breakaway from Caufield, then you're talking about what a great young player Caufield is. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, that the score always seems to influence the narrative.
Okay,
right?
so I'm for sure, but I'm going to argue that Cole Caufield, and this is what I thought Eric Engels and I were talking about as the game was going on.
Well,
Cole Caufield goes out there and he has that opportunity, and a young man like that, to your point, has an opportunity to win the game. Yeah, if he scores, it's great. We talk about it, and it's why I couched everything I said by saying the Montreal Canadiens aren't where they are without him doing that. But he gets stopped there, and I think it affects him after that. I think after that point in the game, he's feeling like he was that close, and then it turns around and he ends up being part of the problem rather than part of the solution. And like I said, after that, he spends the rest of the game floating shots or shooting shots from way out. They're not going to be going in. There's no traffic in front, and they're just it's a loss of possession. And what that does throughout the game, I think, is it just gets the Canadiens out of the structure they're playing. Clearly, it was important enough for Luke Richardson to take him off that line at a crucial part of the game. And I mean, I'll say this. Yes, the Canadiens don't get where they are without those players. But in the end, if the Canadiens end up losing, if this is a turning point, and the Canadiens never recover, and they go from being up 3-1 in this series, and we look back on this, and it's similar to what we saw from Vegas when they were down 2 games. It looked like they were going to go down 3 games to the Colorado Avalanche and found a way to jump back in, and that woke them up, and they took off. That's a mistake that cannot be made at that point. That puck needs to be sealed off. It can't be one of these situations where Cole Caufield, in protecting a 1-0 lead, is looking to scoop up the puck and send someone down ice to win the game. He's trying to win the game, and that's great, and you want that from players like that. They needed to seal off and protect the victory more than they needed to add to it, and I would argue that breakaway that he had got him into that mindset, and that's the thing that young players do as opposed to a more established player who's out there and just trying to make sure they're doing all the right things.
Disagree on that one, Sean. I'm going to go back to the power. Sorry, I would just going to go back to the game. I think was it against the Jets or Toronto? He got stopped on he missed the first power play chance, and then the next time he got a chance, he buried it with the open net. I think it was against Toronto, actually. So he's shown an ability to bounce back before. So I know what you're saying. I mean, and I would also counter by saying this doesn't just happen to young players in the last minute. You put the responsible guy out. You put Armia out because Armia is a known commodity, and he is a defensively player. He wasn't being penalized. He just wanted a more responsible defensive player out to get it to overtime. So, I mean, I'm with you. Maybe he was a little bit more cautious and tentative, but I don't think he completely changed his game. And I actually think that there was a second chance that Caufield actually maybe could have got to the puck before Karlsson spun around down low, but the ref kind of got in the way in the corner, that it never got back to him the second time. So anyways, I know a lot of fans, I know that people are frustrated by the officiating. We want people to know that, generally we don't like dumping on the officials. Nobody thinks the officials have done a good job in this series, but we just don't want to spend half an hour talking about it. You're free to vent your frustrations, but we don't want to really get into it because I think we're all in agreement that the officiating hasn't been good for the entire series and for both sides. So
have you addressed it?
We
yet
haven't
on the show?
No.
I mean, here let's
one thing I would like to mention is there was some discussion on the television broadcast tonight between periods about the officiating, and part of it was talking about what kind of penalty that you want to call for the first penalty of the game. Now, is that a consideration? Do officials spend a lot of time thinking what kind of penalty they would like to call for the first penalty of the game? That concerns me.
Well, I think you do, because the game ends the way it ended that last game, right? Like, a guy gets slashed in the face. Everyone sees it. They've been exposed as missing a key penalty in a game that they had officiated poorly. So I think that they were told heading into this game to try and affect this game as little as they possibly could. I honestly think that was the message sent to that officiating.
Yeah, but when you do absolutely nothing, you're affecting it quite a bit.
Sure, and then when you turn around and call like a chintzy hooking penalty to start the period, I mean, that's the thing that I thought was strange about this is what was the standard that was being set out there tonight, that you could punch guys in the face, but you couldn't lightly tug on them? Like,
you could cross-check them in the back and push their face into the glass, but you can't put your stick in their gloves.
There you go. It just seemed absolutely baffling to me. I didn't understand where it was going, and I mean, this is a refereeing crew that knew it had a white-hot spotlight on it, and I thought at the beginning of the game, okay, they're just not going to call anything. And while that, I fully agree with your point, Mitch, and I hate the idea of playoff hockey and something that's not a call in game 42, something that's a call in game 42 isn't a call in the playoffs anymore. I hate that mentality, but at least I understand the idea of trying to get out of the way of the game. But they got out of the game for the most important stuff, and then interjected in the game in the chintziest of stuff, knowing that the white hot spotlight was on them. It was weird.
Hey, just before we move on, I saw that comment about the toaster, and do you think this would be a good time to let people know you've got asbestos in the headband? just so you're safe,
I don't know, Mitch. If I would have known, Mitch is a good buddy of mine and a former colleague of mine from CBC Manitoba. We worked together for a number of years. If I knew that you were going to come on and side with Kenny the whole time, I probably wouldn't have handed out the invite, to be honest with you.
Well, we wouldn't have had a show for the first 40 minutes, so never mind.
Such a good rapport with Kenny.
Yeah, exactly. He was unfamiliar with our Moose days, with me providing a little color commentary.
Whatever.
On the panel here.
Yeah, no, there is a picture in the Enter Kenny song of you and Kenny in there. So yeah, I probably should have expected this. I'll do deeper research next time before we invite our
exactly.
guests.
You're too busy. Let's get into this right away. Sandy, great question. Do you think Leonard plays game 5, or is it back to Marc-Andre Fleury?
No change. Goalie Leonard won the game. Was outstanding. Team's feeling good. There's no, indication of any saber through the chest of Fleury at the moment. So I would say, it's an easy decision.
Sean, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know why you would ever. I mean, it's done. To be honest, I think you had to stay with him even if they lost. And I mean, even if unless his poor performance was absolutely atrocious. I said this to. Let me just finish here, Mitch. I said this to you before the game in our conversation that you were trying to burn me with in front of our entire audience here. I thought that was an all or nothing decision. Like, I think once you had gone to Robin Lehner, unless he absolutely laid an egg in that game, that you had to stay with him after that point.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
I don't either. Sorry.
Build your case, gentlemen.
No problem.
Your case.
If Vegas loses game 5, Peter DeBoer would have no issue going back to Fleury for 6 and 7, in my opinion.
I'm not saying that he would ever sweat the decision. I just don't think it's a good decision. I don't think his.
Well, no, you said he wasn't going to do it.
Guys played 2 games.
No, I never said he was going to do it.
You said it was all or nothing. That means he's not going back to him.
They've already decided who their number 1 goalie is. The other guys played 2 games in the last 42 days.
I said it's an all or nothing decision, is what I said. I think that that's what he has. I think that is what he should be doing in that situation. I'm not saying that he wouldn't. You're right. I heard the analogy before about the 2 sports cars and that, if you've got the Corvette, you take it out, right? But my counter to that is if you've got two Corvettes, right, and you're driving one all the time, you don't just switch just for the sake of driving your other Corvette. If you've got the same thing, right?
You just keep it in reserve. You keep it in reserve.
Well, why not?
I went from a Mazda Protege to a Corolla. I'm not capable of making any kind of contributions in this discussion.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was an all or nothing decision. I thought if you're doing that, you're just leaving your team, and because you could see it tonight. It's you're asking your players to play two different styles. There was a point tonight where a puck went right past Robin Lehner, and I'm thinking like 27 out of 30 or 31 other goaltenders in the league are getting out to play that puck, and he did not. Right, so you have to play off your defense. We saw it, and again, I'll bring up the same.
One thing. Go ahead. Let
me just clear this. We talked about the Edmonton Oilers because they were the starkest example of that. But you could see the Edmonton Oilers played a different game in front of Mikko Koskinen compared to what they played in front of Mike Smith, because Mike Smith plays the game in such a unique style that their assignments become entirely different. Yeah. And so I think the assignments become different between Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner. And because of that, I know what you're saying, Ken, and I know that Pete DeBoer is going to make that decision one way or the other. It doesn't mean it's a good decision. Doesn't mean it's a good decision for the team. It turned out tonight because Robin Lehner showed up and absolutely stole a game. Robin Lehner showed up on a night where Carey Price was on the ice and was the best goaltender on the ice, and it worked out. That's great. I don't think it worked out everywhere else. I don't think for their systems it worked out, but it worked out because the guy you needed to be a brick wall was a brick wall. But it doesn't mean that you just bounce back and forth carelessly between those two decisions.
Oh, I wasn't saying bounce back. I was just saying that no matter what happened tonight, now you have a fresher Fleury in case you're down in the series or not. I do think that I think Lehner stays for Game 5, but I don't think it's a guarantee that he stays for the rest of the series by any stretch of the imagination.
Even if they win?
Well,
I think it's one of those things. But when your goalie wins, you can't take him out.
No, maybe not. But hang on. Because the folks are paying attention, Sean, let's give the scouting report on the pizza place that Eric Engels suggested at the end of the show.
Oh man. Okay, Pizza Tony. He sent me there to get, and I think he said it in the broadcast.
Pepperoni
get a slice of pepperoni with a ranch dip, I think that's what it was. I never do that. I never ever do it, but I did it because when people scout something for me, I'll do exactly what they say, and it was good. It was really good. I do think that it was elevated by the ranch dressing. And then he told me to get a square of margarita pizza, and the difference between the two is your pepperoni slice was your typical slice, but the square was like not deep dish because deep dish is an entirely different animal, but the crust was like that thick. And so I was thinking this is going to be bad, and it was so light and fluffy and airy, and yet the bottom of both crusts was like really, really crispy. It was honestly, I said this to him, and then he took me to a place today where we had a smoked brisket Reuben. Oh my God. It was amazing.
Okay, I'm out of here now. Forget it. Yeah. Now he's just trying to make me jealous because I'm not on the road.
No, stop. It doesn't end there. And then we had smoked brisket, and then we had these Asian pork buns that were amazing. And I said to him, I'll give him credit for this. And it got me thinking about Winnipeg, and we should probably start having conversations about food in Winnipeg at some point because we all love food and we want to talk about it. But every place that he's sent me so far has been a unique experience. Like I've never had a pizza crust like that before. That was like perfectly crispy on the bottom to the point that you get that crunch sound, and yet it wasn't like burnt. It wasn't tough. It wasn't heavy. The dough was really light and airy. It was amazing. And that Reuben today was like one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life. And I love sandwiches. And one of the other one, like top 5, is the Cuban that he sent me for. So Reubens and Cubans, that's what you got to look out for when you're in Montreal. It's good stuff.
All right, before we roll here, let's get to this question here. Thoughts on
we're this late? Holy smokes, I'm sorry.
I was thinking of Al Montoya when you brought the Cubans up, but anyway.
I can't answer this question fully, but I can't answer it because it just may be. It just may be the best pizza I've ever had. Okay, what do you want here, Ken? Where are we going
sorry,
to?
quick one. Solero, we're not ignoring you. To me, Thomas Tatar does not work on that top line. He doesn't play. He's not responsible enough defensively. Lehkonen is doing his job. That's a line that, yes, we're talking about maybe needing to generate a bit more offense, but I don't see Tatar being able to play head-to-head against Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty, so I don't think that that's happening. I want to answer...
That's what it was.
Best of three.
You pointed
here.
your pork buns, Sean? What are you doing?
Yeah, I am. That's what Rob Noakes is describing here. That's exactly what we had. Fluffy white pastry, but it was so good. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Best of three. Who you got? What do you like? What's happening?
Go, Mitch. You
Best
go
of
first.
three?
Yep.
Oh,
what are our thoughts on the rest of the series?
I don't like Montreal's. As well as Montreal played tonight, I'm not sure they can play that well again on Tuesday. And I think Vegas knows it can be much better and is going home. So I think Vegas is in a good position for Game 5. And if Vegas can take a 3-2 lead in the series, I don't see them losing.
There you go. Sean?
Yeah, I'll go next. I thought there was a couple interesting reasons for Vegas, despite being outplayed in that game, to have confidence coming out of it. We talked a lot throughout this series about Nick Suzuki's line being the better line against that William Karlsson line. I thought tonight clearly the William Karlsson line was the better of those two lines. I think they've got a lot of confidence to build off of that. I think there's confidence for them to have. I don't know if you guys talked about it, but 7 of 10 goals in this series scored by the Vegas Golden Knights have been scored by their defense, and it's a problem the Montreal Canadiens have yet to completely solve. They can't seem to keep Vegas's defense off the board, and I mean, we know that Dom is behind the scenes and he's building a plan, but it's one thing that if I'm the Vegas Golden Knights, it keeps them going. You could see even when they weren't getting penetration towards the net, they were still throwing a lot of stuff from the net. They've got a lot of confidence there. And as much as I try and boil that game down to 2 mistakes, Alex Pietrangelo just ripped that one off the post and waited. And it was like, you can see they've got it figured out. Those defense know when to shoot the puck. They know when to set up the screen. They've got that figured out. And I just see there's far too many times that the Montreal Canadiens that the Montreal Canadiens are defending and Vegas passes the puck low up to the defenseman, and they are turning around and absolutely, wide-eyed skating as fast as they can to get out on those defensemen, and the defensemen keep catching them in that transition in the wrong spot. So that's a reason for them to have confidence. And Ken, you've been on this the entire time. You talked about Mark Stone and that top line, and they've really wanted to have an effect on this series. Well, they got it. They got it in overtime. That goal is set up by Max Pacioretty. So not only is the defense, Montreal can't figure it out. The second line, I feel, has reason to be confident going into that next game. And third, I think that the sleeping bear may have been woken up in that Vegas top line. If they get going, we could start seeing this series going the same way, could have the same feel as what we saw against Colorado. I'm not going to give up on the Montreal Canadiens. They've showed they were the better team tonight, and they've showed that they can bounce back really well. But I do think that this was a massive, massive missed opportunity. And I think at this stage in the playoffs, when you miss opportunities like that, you end up looking back on them as being the thing that cost you. I think tonight is maybe what's going to cost the Canadiens in this series.
Yeah, Sean, we've talked about the parallels between this Montreal Canadiens team and the 2019 St. Louis Blues, and we're about to find out how true that parallel really is, because we said that a few times about the Blues, where it looked like they could take the take the real hold of the series against Dallas, and then Dallas would come back with the counterpunch. So I think it's going to be very. I don't think anyone's doubting Montreal. I think we've said it's been very clear that they've been able to bounce back. But this is their, with all due respect to the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is their biggest challenge in terms of how they're going to have to try and respond, because of how well they played. And I'm with you, Mitch. I don't know that the Canadiens have a much higher level than what we saw, but we know Vegas does. They've shown it on countless occasions. Their inability to get slot shots has been a major, major problem in this series. They're getting blocked. They're going over the net. Sean, you and I talked about this. Is Price getting in the heads of Vegas? Is that why Marchessault is trying to only go bar down and his shots are right now over the net instead of on the net and making Price make a save? I thought Matthias Janmark was such a critical piece today for the Vegas Golden Knights, really skating well and generating. And Mitch and I talked about it before you got here. When Pete DeBoer put Tuck back on the third line, that matchup manipulation you and I were texting about, Sean, that really turned the tables for me in terms of how Vegas was playing. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. How close is Chandler Stevenson to playing? Can he return for Game 5? We know that Patrick Brown didn't play a ton today for Vegas. We know that another one of Pete DeBoer's classic moves. He likes Reeves in the lineup in Vegas. He bangs a few bodies around. He knows how much he thrives on that 18,000 plus environment. I expect we'll see Reeves again in Game 5 for Patrick Brown most likely, and maybe we'll see what happens with Stevenson. I think that that was a big.
Just if I could add a quick point. Ray Lauders is the best bus driver in the Western Hockey League, has been known to look after the broadcaster with a cool bottle of water when the timing is right. So good to see that Ray's chipping in on the show tonight.
Sounds like a good man. I can speak with knowledge. You don't deserve that.
No, I don't. I don't deserve it. That's just how good he is. and Ray is a. Well, I'll just say this. Not a lot of people know that you can get home from Moose Jaw in 4 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow. Holy smokes. Okay, let's close this thing down. I wanted to say this. I don't know if you addressed this, but if you're watching this on our buddy Eric Engels Twitter account, he was supposed to join us. We had some technical issues at Sportsnet that kept him off the ability to be here. He had to write a little bit late. One of the things we're trying to do here is open things up so that you'd be able to, have conversations with him and ask him questions like our chat room does with us in certain issues. We expect that to return for Game 5, so stick with us in that case. Either way, whoever showed up, and we really appreciate you showing up tonight. We appreciate your comments as always, and we really appreciate Mitch Peacock, who we've wanted to get on here for a long time. It's great to see you, even though, Mitch, there wasn't a lot of backing up your old buddy Sean Reynolds and a little too much backing up your buddy Ken Weave. But hey,
Sean needs a new account. Sean needs a new account for next game.
I don't know this. I don't know this sort of poor me, Sean Reynolds. I've never experienced that before.
Well, you've never done this to me before. That's why I'm so surprised.
He's been on the road too long, Mitch. He's been on the road too long.
There you go.
It's a long time.
There you go. Anyways, Mitch,
thank you, fellas. Really enjoyed it.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for getting us through this. Ken, I appreciate you as always. Great to do this, and we will see everybody for Game 5. Last thing, if you're watching and you haven't clicked subscribe or like, head to our Kenny and Renny YouTube page. It's the best place to follow us and see our other videos. Give us a like while you're there, and give us a subscribe.
Easy for you to say.
Okay, yeah.
That's okay. We can edit that out.
There you go. Time to end the show. Thanks, everybody. We will see you after Game 5.